I used to live in a small studio apartment in Chicago. After finishing college, I moved into a modest space on the top floor of a three-story building. The apartment was not anything fancy, a single room with just enough room for my essentials, but it was mine. The rent was cheap, and it was conveniently located near work, which at 23 and fresh out of school with lunch was more than I could ask for. The only window in the apartment looked out of a narrow alley. On the opposite side was a building similar to mine, and the alley barely allowed enough space for a car to fit through. During the day, it was always shadowed, and at night, it was pitch black, something I did not mind since I was working late shifts at a lounge on the north side. I typically got home around 2:30 or 3 in the morning, grabbed a quick meal, then zoned out on my phone until I passed out. It was during this routine that, about a month into my stay, I noticed something strange. I would just come here, kicked off my shoes, and flipped on the over at night when I saw something shift in the window across the alley. It was so subtle, a flicker like a curtain twitching. I froze for a moment, but when I looked again, everything was still. I shut it off, thinking it was nothing. Maybe I startled someone or it was just the wind. The next night, it happened again. As soon as I switched on the light, I saw the curtain move. This time, it was more distinct, a hand pulling it back just slightly before quietly letting it fall. I couldn't see anyone behind it. The lights in the neighboring apartment were off, leaving nothing but a silver of movement in the otherwise dark window. What caught my attention, however, was that I had never seen the lights on in that apartment. I was ashamed it was empty. That night I barely slept, my mind running with thoughts of the curtain and the mysterious hand. Over the next week, I paid closer attention. Every single night without fail, the curtain would move as soon as turn it on the light. It was always the same, a slow parting of the curtain, a brief glimpse of the dark room behind, and then it would close again. I started testing it. I lived by the nights of a few nights and sat by the window, but nothing happened. As soon as I turned them on, though the curtain would shift. Someone was watching me, it was obvious. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone simply liked looking out their window at night. But that didn't explain the time. I didn't explain how it always happened right when I got home. I asked my landlord about the apartment across the alley, and he told me it had been vacant for months. I pressed him asking if someone had moved in recently, but he shrugged it off and joked that I was just being paranoid. I almost considered calling the police but thought better of it. After all, what should I report? Someone possibly looking at me through a window in an empty apartment. He hesitated, but eventually he agreed to me there was the key. The apartment was dusty, empty, and clearly had been for a while. There was nothing inside except for a metal folding chair in the back room, positioned directly in front of the window. The place was supposed to be locked, but somehow someone had been getting inside. The police are called and they searched the apartment, talking fingerprints, but nothing came of it. The realization that I would be watched the entire made time me sick. How long had this been happening? Moved out that week. To this day, I have no idea who was watching me or how they got it. I have considered the possibility of it being the landlord, but I dismissed that theory, knowing he would have removed the chair before showing me the apartment. I still dream about that window, and sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night, certain that someone is still watching me.
Story to a few years earlier. When I was 12, my family moved to a rural area in Oregon, far from the nearest town. We lived on a large plot of land surrounded by dense pine forests. The house was old, built in the 1940s, and had all the classic features: creaky floors, a spooky attic, and a rundown shed about 30 feet from the back door. The shed was packed with old tools and junk from the previous owner. And although my dad intended to clean it out, he never got around to it. We mostly stayed away from it. I remember the first time I noticed something strange. It was a weeknight, close to midnight. I was in bed reading with a flashlight when I heard our dog, Max, barking uncontrollably. Max, a golden retriever, was usually calm, but when he barked like that, something was wrong. I crept to the window and saw him facing the shed, barking into the darkness. The motion sensor light by the back door flickered on, casting long shadows across the lawn. I couldn't see anyone, but Max wouldn't stop. After a while, he calmed down, and I walked away. The next morning, we found deep boot prints in the dirt between the house and the shed. My dad shrugged it off, thinking it was probably a neighbor or someone passing through, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Over the next few weeks, Max barked at that shed nearly every night. Every time we look outside, there were fresh footprints, always leading to the shed. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps on the gravel outside my window. I froze. The footsteps stopped, then started again, heading toward the shed. I peeked through the blinds, and for a moment, I saw him, a tall man standing beside the shed, wearing a dirty gray coat. His face was hidden by shadows. And then the light went out. I backed away from the window, my heart racing. I woke my parents, and my dad grabbed his rifle and went outside. But the man was gone. The footprints were still there, fresh and leading to the shed. This time, my dad decided to check inside. He unlocked the padlock and opened the doors. All that was inside was rusted tools and old tarps. He added a new lock and reinforced the doors. For a while, things seemed to settle down. Then, a month later, Max went missing. We searched everywhere through the woods, down the road, even asked the neighbors, but he was gone. I was devastated, but kept hoping he had just gotten lost. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the shed and Max. Round 3 a.m., I heard the back door creak open. I got out of bed and tiptoed into the hallway. My dad was already up, holding his rifle. We moved to the back door, just in time to see the motion light flicker on. There, standing by the shed, was the man again, holding something in one hand and Max's collar in the other. My heart sank. My dad shouted and raised the rifle, but the man ran into the woods. We called the police, and when they arrived, they found disturbing things inside the shed: crude symbols carved into the dirt, a pile of animal bones, and a backpack filled with personal items, including wallets, watches, and worn clothing. Among the items was a notebook filled with strange symbols, incoherent rambling, and disturbing drawings of houses, families, and eyes. It was clear someone had been watching us. As the police packed up the evidence, I looked out the window. One last time, the police tape fluttered in the breeze, and everything was still. But just beyond the tape, in the tree line, I saw a face. I blinked, and it was gone. I screamed my dad's name in panic. But when he looked, the face was gone. He ran outside, firing into the woods, furious, desperate. We moved out soon after, to a much less remote part of Oregon. Story 3. In the summer of 2018, my friends and I decided to take a weekend trip to the Blue Ridge Mountains. We were all in our early 20s, freshly out of college, looking to escape everything. We found a spot deep in the national park, miles from civilization, with no cell signal. It was the perfect place to unwind. The first night was peaceful hiking in, setting up camp, and making memories around the fire. But on the second night, things started to feel off. Around 11 p.m., Marcus stiffened and pointed toward the woods. He swore he saw someone duck behind a tree. Tim thought it was a deer, but the sound of a snap in the same direction made Abby uneasy. We decided to call it a night and headed to bed. That night, I woke to the sound of breathing from outside my tent. It wasn't one of my friends, it sounded like an older person, someone struggling to breathe. I reached for my flashlight, but didn't turn it on. The breathing moved from one side of the tent to the other before stopping entirely. I thought I had imagined it. But the next morning, Marcus and Hannah confirmed they heard it too. We found fresh footprints around the camp, leading into the woods and disappearing. We joked about it at first, but the unease lingered. That night, we stayed up late around a much bigger fire, keeping our flashlights close. At 2 a.m., we heard it again, the crunching of leaves, followed by a low voice, too quiet to make out. Marcus turned on his flashlight for a second, and we saw him, a naked man crouched behind a tree. He scrambled back into the woods like an animal. None of us slept that night. The next morning, we found more footprints, bare footprints leading deeper into the woods. It was only after hearing a voice from the trees say, "I see you guys," that we packed up and rushed to the car. The ranger at the station later confirmed there had been reports of a man, maybe more than one, living in the woods. Some said he stole things, others said worse. I didn't ask what that meant. After that, I don't think any of us will ever go camping again.